Welcome to the Restless Creatives podcast. Comfortable chats with inspirational creatives. Hosted by three self-confessed restless creatives, Lucy Hunter, Fiona Pickles and Bridget Girling. This week we chat with Hayley Neal, the owner and designer behind wedding dress label Rolling in Roses. With a background in costume design, her dresses are stunning, glamorous and comfortable. Having created a truly ethical, made in Britain brand, Hayley is an amazing inspiration. And as you'll discover, she has some quirky interests too.
Okay.
Yeah. And can you hear us?
Yes, I totally can. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that.
Hello. How are you?
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Getting on with it.
Yeah. About to give birth. Yeah.
Oh gosh, are you?
Yeah. Do you want to see?
Yeah. Oh wow, really about to give birth?
Yeah. 5 weeks roughly thereabouts. So.
Wow, my goodness. Do you know what you're having?
No, surprise.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. Nice little reward at the end of the ordeal.
Oh. Lockdown baby, a real lockdown baby.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to do.
Well, it's pretty boring.
Podcast.
Exactly, that's what we've done.
Anyway, before we go any further, let me introduce you to everybody. So there's Bridget in blue.
Hello.
Hello.
And Lucy with the big backdrop behind her.
Hi.
And
Yeah.
You know me.
I do.
And you're Hayley.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
I did notice you'd call yourself Hayley Clare. Is that? Are you referring to yourself as Hayley Clare now? Or?
No, it's just my middle name, so sometimes I write it on
Okay.
things, and yeah, Hayley's absolutely fine.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was calling you the wrong thing now.
No, just Hayley. I mean, Hayley Clare Neal sounds very slightly more interesting than Hayley Neal, so
you could invent a really dramatic middle name.
Yeah.
I
didn't change my.
What would yours be?
I'm not good at thinking of things like that off the top of my head. God, I can't speak properly.
Fiona
Anyway.
Cynthia Pickles.
No, I was thinking more like Thunderbolt or something.
Oh, right, okay. Fiona Thunderbolt Pickles.
Moving
No.
swiftly on.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm ridiculously flattered that you want to talk to me.
No, because I mean, we've known each other for quite a few years now, haven't we? We've worked together for a while. I tell you what I found really interesting, and even though I know you, watching that little clip that you put up on Instagram that was just giving you a bit of background into the business and thing was so interesting. And I'm like, blimey, I know Hayley, and there's loads of this I just didn't know. And it was just kind of, we wanted to delve into it more and, find out about your creative process, because I know you're a very, very interesting person. There's a lot of interesting stuff behind the scenes. Even just the name of the business. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? So give us a little overview into Hayley and where you've come from and where you are now, and then we'll just kind of ask as we go along.
Okay. Let's start. Well, obviously, I've got a bridal wear label. I used to sell vintage wedding dresses, which is where I started. But I always wanted to make. I always wanted to design and make. But I didn't know if it would be feasible. I had no idea how to start a business, no idea how to start a design label. So I just started a little shop. This was back in the vintage wave of weddings in 2012, when that was really very much a thing, and really rode that wave. It was just the right time to do it. And I've always been a long life vintage fan, clothes, interiors, everything. So it was just a lovely way to start a business. And I was just kind of going to see what happened. So that was called Glory Days. And I had a shop, and then I started the design label alongside it, just sort of getting the feeling that people wanted a certain type of thing, but it wasn't really out there. So like in 2012 there wasn't much alternative bridal fashion out there at all, especially in Britain. You know, it was really hard for anyone to find anything that was not, you know, a meringue. And actually, that I think that's why the vintage did so well for such a long time for so many people. Because if you wanted anything that was different to the norm, then vintage was the way to go. You know, because you've got all the different styles to choose from, and you couldn't find that stuff in normal wedding dress shops. You know, anything short, anything, you know, like slinky, like 1930s stuff. It was just all the same everywhere. And people used to say to me, you know, you should go into bridal design when I was at uni and stuff. And people can't imagine what you're going to do with your creative degree, right?
What degree did you do? Yeah.
I did costume design, actually.
Okay.
I was never really interested in fashion. I did sort of theatrical costume design. I've always been more interested in, yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah,
I've always been more interested in, you know, clothes to show a story or a character rather than fashion. I'm not really interested in fashion. And people, you know, trying to follow trends and be the same as everybody else. I'm not interested. I'd rather, you know, people be able to express themselves through clothes rather than try and follow them.
You did that for a bit, didn't you? You actually freelanced.
Yeah, quite a long time. So I think I started Glory Days when I was 29. So for my whole 20s, I was doing random jobs. I've never really had a proper job.
No such thing as a proper job.
No.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of fascinated how you do that freelance. I mean, I can remember the reason I asked that is because when I was at college learning floristry, nobody ever said that you could be a freelance florist. And I wonder if it's the same with costume design, theatre costume design. You know, does anybody say to you, you can just freelance and work for all sorts of different people? Or
well, you know, people kind of do say it, but I mean, the costume world has sort of changed quite a lot, actually, even since I was at uni, because you used to be able to get a job at the BBC or whatever, but now even all that's all freelance. Like everything's freelance now. You used to be able to, you know, get a job in a production company or something, and you might have it for 20 years, but I don't think anybody works like that anymore. It's all, you know, everybody's fighting for the freelance jobs. So
there's no costume department in these big, you know, BBC.
They do have costume departments and costume hire departments and stuff, but there's very few permanent jobs. Everyone's sort of hired for specific productions and then you're gone again.
So do people have particular niches? Sorry, I'm quite fascinated by that whole kind of, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some people get, well, it depends. You can get funneled into certain things. I've met people that have ended up just doing, you know, commercials. yeah. And some people, you know, obviously get known for period stuff and things like that. But yeah, people, it's kind of, I think it's become a little bit more of a stressful industry to work in, like so many things, just because everybody's, you know, not one to step on each other's toes, but you're still fighting for the jobs, aren't you? So, yeah, it's a funny industry to be in, I think. I don't know. I mean, I loved it when I did, you know, I used to do theatre as well as film stuff. I didn't do that many big films. It was more indie things.
Which theatres?
Leeds Playhouse, where I worked for quite a lot, which was just my favourite job I've ever had. It was just magical, and the standard of make that they do there is higher than any film I've ever worked on. It's you know, the knowledge they've got and the you know, the technical know-how is second to none, really, and you know, it's so undervalued because it's such skill, you know. And I learned so much from there, more from the people there than I've learned from anywhere else. So
I used to go to the Royal Exchange in Manchester a lot. Used to have like a monthly ticket. Used to go with my mum, and you know, it was always the costumes that stood out. That's just amazing, you know, and you just, there's the kind of like underworld that nobody thinks about, really.
Absolutely.
And they have to work really hard, those costumes, don't they? You know, they've gone through it.
Yeah, some of them get a bit stinky, but yeah.
But did you work on any interesting productions or films or anything?
Yeah, well, at the Playhouse, probably I mean, you've got your favourites, and then you've got the ones that might be more well known. Like I worked on they did a production of Othello with Lenny Henry as Othello, which was beautiful. And actually, Stephen Snell, who was the head of costume, I think he designed the costumes for that, and it was really beautiful, like sort of military agency jackets, and it was a really stunning production, but quite a stripped back set design. That was nice. But then sometimes, the more fun ones are obviously the things like they did a big Annie production at Christmas, and that was really nice. Set in the 30s, is it? Yeah. So it's a real variety. That's the best thing about theatre. You do so much different stuff.
Yeah.
But I imagine there's an awful lot of that has now transferred into what you're doing now. There's the sort of, I mean, I think you're quite big in sleeves, aren't you? Offering different types of sleeves. But I guess, having experienced all of those different eras and different types of clothing, whether it's uniform or a wench or a, modern day, whatever, you've tried everything, I imagine, and you can feed that
I
through.
often say that to people, and actually in the industry, in the film industry, people do respect people from the theatre because they know that you've got such a wide range and experience of cuts and fabrics and techniques, because you have to do anything from like fantasy costumes to, like you say, like contemporary tailoring or whatever. But yeah, I feel like it's really, really stood me in good stead to be able to solve the problems that if you design something, you want to be able to make it to the best standard. And
so can I just ask, sorry, I do find it really fascinating because it's like set design, which I find fascinating as well. But so they'll do it. So for example, the Othello, with Lenny Henry. So they'll say, okay, this is how we're trying to make the whole production feel, and is it then your job to go away and interpret that into how the costume's going to look, how that's going to make the audience feel, or
I think it depends.
Given a specific,
as a maker, I mean, I never designed for theatre actually. I was just a maker.
Okay, so there's designers and makers and
yes,
right. Okay,
that's kind of one of the biggest reasons I wanted to set up by myself and do something like I am doing now, is that in theatre and in film, you quite often end up being either the designer or the pattern cutter or the maker, and you never get to do all three unless you're doing a small scale production. Right. But I love all three of those things. So
hence what you're doing now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm living the dream because I get to do it all. So yeah, you have these different tiers of people and some designers are much more involved than others. Some will draw you a sketch and then somebody else will source the fabrics or whatever. But some designers are really involved and right down to the finest detail. So I think it's probably different for every production, really.
So what made you step away from that then? Just that you wanted to go into your own thing and be in control of your own destiny, or?
Yeah, it was very hard to leave theatre work. Now, I hesitated about that a lot, but it wasn't very hard for me to leave film work. I didn't really. The vibe, it's stressful and people are very self-important. And I just felt, people, it didn't feel like a very supportive industry to me. I mean, it's great. I met some really nice people, and I don't want to. I wouldn't want anyone to think I'm slagging anyone off. I had loads of fun, but it's all consuming. You're away a lot of the time.
There's lots of egos.
Lots of egos, and not just from the cast, but from the crew as well. People thinking that they're more stressed than anyone else, and I don't know. For some people, I think the rewards of meeting famous people and the odd bit of glamour that you get, not that it's glamorous because it's not, is enough. But for me, it just didn't feel like enough, and it was quite a relief when I actually stopped doing it. So I just had an epiphany one day that I might open this shop and to see how it went. I literally just thought that I might do it for a year or two, and it would just be a nice little
thing to do
episode.
So where did you source because this was the vintage then, was it? Where did you source those from?
Well, back 10 years ago, you could pick up amazing vintage anywhere. Car boot sales and even charity shops sometimes, and you'd have to do them up and clean them and everything, but there was so much around it. You could buy them really cheap and source them quite easily, but then lots and lots of people ended up, I don't want to say jumping on the bandwagon, that sounds awful, but it was just such a scene and people were so into it that it got a little bit diluted because they got harder and harder to source. But yeah, it was quite easy then.
And you
weren't just bridal though, were you?
No, I did normal vintage as well. So I thought so. I was hedging my bets a bit. I had sort of 3 sections to the business when I first started Glory Days. So I had normal vintage, but sort of more fancy stuff, really, I suppose. And then the vintage wedding dresses, and I also did bespoke wedding dresses from the beginning as well. So I was always making a design but I just didn't know which thing would be successful, and what would make a living.
So did you chop things up and alter them, or did you sell them as they were, or was it a bit of both?
As they were, mostly. I offered alterations, and people would do a lot of things, like a lot of them are very high necked and things like that, so quite often we'd alter necklines for people and things like that. But I was always really wanting to keep them as vintage as possible, obviously. And actually most people did. Found some amazing stuff. So yeah, really nice.
Oh my goodness, I wish we could go through your wardrobe. I bet it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, there's very few pieces that I can fit into at the moment. So
yes. Understandable.
Where did the name Glory Days? Where did the name Glory Days come from?
That's the song title that I walked down the aisle to. It's Pulp. But sometimes when you say you walk down the aisle to Pulp, people are like, what? But it wasn't like a disco Pulp song.
No, I know, because it's all things like that I find just really interesting about you. There's always a little story behind everything. So
well, I like extra background of anything that I like. I like reading into lyrics in songs and stuff like that. It's a thing, really.
I guess that's what makes a business interesting, isn't it? You're bringing in those personal stories.
And you do have that sort of really different background. It's not like a sort of traditional bridal background, is it? It's not. It's edgy and interesting, and that's what I find really appealing. So, tell us about the Rolling in Roses, because that's the name of the business, isn't it? Rolling in Roses.
Yes. So I had Glory Days, and then when I decided I was going to start doing sort of my own collection of designs, because I kind of had this idea in my head of things that I would like to sell, and it is so hard to actually start up because it takes so much time and money to produce a collection. It took a long time to get there, and even my first collection when I was really, really skint, it takes thousands of pounds, really. So yeah, I was sort of striving towards that for a long time, and it felt like it needed to be separate from Glory Days because it was going to be a different thing. So it's quite hard to explain to some people what like a label is, but if you say to people, like Tesco's have got Florence and Fred, or that's kind of what it is. It needed to be a different thing, and the ultimate goal was obviously to get stocked in other shops, so I wanted it to have its own separate name, so that it wasn't confused with what Glory Days was. And so yeah, I was looking for an interesting name, and I've got this really old, I think it's the first volume of poetry I think that Patti Smith published. It was from there, and it's just a line from there that I took it from. So
yeah, no, it's fab.
Perfect.
I love it. So what made you go on, Liz?
No, I was just going to say, so how on earth do you start setting up your own label? What
It's been a very shallow, long learning curve.
That's probably the best way to do it.
A really long time. Which I say to people all the time, but I'm really glad that that's the way it's happened, because if I'd have grown too quickly, I don't think I would have done a very good job of it.
Yeah.
So it was just very baby steps and building up from nothing to just little bits all the time, and finding my way, doing my research, trying to find out how you do wholesale and how you approach people, and I didn't have any sort of knowledge of how the fashion industry worked, or even, like I say, how to run a business. I was just winging it completely. Healthy dose of naivety definitely helped.
I think naivety helped in so many things, though, doesn't it? If you knew what was ahead of you, you just wouldn't do it.
100%. 100%. I think most people who have their own businesses would agree with that.
Yeah. You've just got to follow your nose, haven't you? I think you've just got to keep going. I think it can be really hard along the way, but if you're passionate about something, then
well that's it, isn't it? I mean, if you weren't passionate, then you wouldn't get there, would you? You'd give up. So
did you always think it was going to be bridal that your own label would be?
Well, no, I mean, it was only because Glory Days was doing so well that I went into bridal, and then because it seemed like there was a bit of a sea change happening in the industry, the wedding industry.
Right.
People had this hunger for more alternative things. Because yeah, as I say, when I was at uni and stuff, people used to say, "Oh, you can be a wedding dress designer," and I was like, "No, no way," because I wasn't interested in any of that at all. But then when it started to become apparent that people were looking for cooler stuff, more alternative stuff, more comfortable, practical wedding dresses, but and things like that, it felt like that could be something that I'd be really interested in. And I'd made my own wedding dress, and I'd made my sister's wedding dress, and that's actually when I had the epiphany to start Glory Days, because we were looking for ideas for my sister's wedding dress, and we went down to London because we wanted to go to a few vintage wedding dress shops and stuff like that, and there was nothing up here at all. So it just felt like it was a bit of an opportunity to sort
an
of
open door to walk through.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly, and sort of it felt like there was an appetite for it. So yeah, that's what.
And up here is York, isn't it? You're based in York.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, York, yeah.
You're right in the middle of York, though, aren't you? You're sort of like central York. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So apart from yourself and your sister, who do you remember your first client that you made a dress for, or had
Well,
you?
I was the first wedding dress I made for myself, but that was a long time ago. I mean, I was 24 when I got married, so I was quite young, and that was way before I even had to shop or anything. So, and then I'd made one for my friend Sam the year after, and then my sister, and actually, and then around the time I was opening Glory Days, it was around the time that a lot of my friends were getting married, so I made a lot for friends around then as well.
So you didn't have to start with a collection; you could start doing pieces for people.
I just started fully bespoke. So I was selling the original vintage wedding dresses, and I just offered this bespoke service where I could design a dress with a bride and just make whatever they wanted, and it was all made to measure and stuff, which is very labour intensive. Because obviously everything's completely different, and you're using completely different fabrics for each person. But that's great. You learn so much having to do it completely different every time.
So how did that work? Did they come in with like an idea saying, "I want this dress, I want these sleeves, I want that," or was it your vision? Did they just
everybody was different, and I was happy to do it. However, when some people would come in with a couple of inspiration images and a fabric, and that would be it. And some people would sort of have a rough idea of shape, but we'd do sketches together and sort of develop it like that. And I'd source the fabrics for them and stuff, obviously. So yeah, it was different every time, but.
Did you find it was just word of mouth to start with, recommendation, or did you do a lot of these bridal fairs? Or
I did bridal fairs quite a lot, but that was more for the vintage side, really. But I mean, I had this tiny little shop on the other side of York, full of all this vintage stuff, and I still can't believe that anyone trusted me to make the wedding dress, because to begin with, I only had a couple of bridal things in my portfolio, so people were really trusting me. Which I'm eternally grateful for.
It needs one person, doesn't it, to trust you? And I've got a similar story, really. So set you on to bigger things.
You've got a real niche now, though, haven't you? Because you also are very into using ethically sourced fabrics, and it's turned into something that is so of the moment. And it's, what would you call that silk?
Oh, the silk, the one in India, yeah.
Peace silk,
that's it.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
Sourcing all of this kind of beautiful material, but that's friendly to the earth. It's just, that there must be so many couples and brides, obviously in particular, who are now thinking, yes, I really want to reduce that impact my special day is having on the planet. So
definitely,
you're the go-to person.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that it's coincided that way. I was wanting to do that for such a long time, but you couldn't find the fabrics. Even 2 years ago, there was much less available than there is now. It was really, really hard to source that kind of thing. I mean, if I had the buying power to buy 1,000-meter rolls, then it would have been easier. But when you're trying to on a small scale, it's really, really hard to source this stuff, and it was just. You'd find information about certain fabrics that were in development, but they weren't really commercially available anywhere or anything. So I've always used natural fabrics, biodegradable fabrics and stuff, but they're not particularly, they haven't got any certifications or anything like that for the stuff that I used to use. and it's literally just been the last couple of years where it's really been much easier to. I'm not saying it's easy because it is still quite a task, but much easier to get your hands on the stuff that you would like to be using, and that is actually, authentically certified and inspected and things like that as well. So
because
yeah, it's great.
made from
love it.
recycled bottles, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
How does that even work? I mean, I love that idea that
I know.
something that's just so disposable is then being reused.
I know, and you know what? This fabric it's beautiful.
Is it?
It looks like. Shall I waft one around for you if you want?
Do a show and tell.
Hold on a
See all
second.
these beautiful dresses hanging behind you.
That looks fancy sleeves.
I don't know if you can see that fabric, but it looks like silk.
Yeah.
But it looks like it hangs just amazingly.
It drapes amazingly. Yeah, I mean,
Drapes.
it's very
Drapes.
difficult to use. Sorry. So yeah, that one is made from recycled bottles that are reclaimed from the sea.
Oh,
So it's actually
How
cleaning
good is that? Yeah.
cleaning the earth instead of polluting it. and you know, it was really hard to master that fabric because we don't hardly ever use synthetics, and they are quite hard to perform the way you want them to look. So for that dress, I think I drafted 5 different versions of the skirt before it was behaving the way I wanted it to behave. But totally worth it. It's beautiful.
I guess that's something that those of us who don't make clothes, and I'm one of them, you just can't imagine how much engineering has to go into this and how much thinking and real design and presumably real challenges as well along the way.
Yeah, it's actually quite nice when people say that because not everybody appreciates how hard it is. It's I think to get the to get the finish and the proper real results that you want, you do have to really think about it because it's not just I would never cut a pattern without knowing what the fabric was going to be. But even then, there's restrictions because fabrics come in different widths, and you can't you have to put certain seams where you wouldn't have designed a seam there, but you've got to make it work because you need to cut the pieces out of this certain width of fabric. So, I mean, it's part of the joy of it for me, working all that out and how you're going to finish things, cuffs and necklines and things. Literally lie awake in the middle of the night thinking of this stuff, but it's a joyous problem solving exercise. So I love it.
I think it shows, doesn't it, on the dresses? It just, and you offer different options as well for like different sleeves, and that it's not just like, right, there's that dress with those sleeves. It's all sort of
fully bespoke then, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because we make everything here, there's no reason not to do that. Obviously, so many designers, most, obviously things are made overseas, so it's much more of a faff for them to offer any changes, whereas we can just get the pattern out, change the neckline, bang, that's it, everything's made to order. So it's
I've watched a little bit of Sewing Bee. I know it's not easy.
That is the level of my experience, and it was like, I can't mention the Sewing Bee.
I know, I was thinking, can I say that? But that does demonstrate people who have some knowledge, and they can make some absolute disasters, can't they?
It is really, sometimes you can make the tiniest little change and it can absolutely ruin a dress.
And there's kind of nowhere to hide with a wedding dress. I mean, it's got to perform all day. It's usually a very light colour, which I don't think is very forgiving, is it? I mean, you sort of see everything in that light colour.
Yeah, definitely. We quite often say here, like, wouldn't it be nice if we could make coloured wedding dresses? Yeah.
But you're right, Lucy, it's also got to go into the night. Got to go dancing, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a happy face.
I'm just thinking of remembering my meringue because I got married in the late 90s and how filthy it was at the end of that. God knows what I was doing.
Oh yeah, they pick up so much dust, don't they, off the floor?
Yeah, it's quite hideous. I was just looking at. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say I had a ludicrous meringue as well.
Did you?
Same sort of era.
Yeah, I know. Big lots of tulle
I mean, what
underneath.
possessed
I
me?
had hoops. I had hoops.
The most uncomfortable creation ever made in 96 degrees, I think we had that day as well.
Really?
Yeah, it was back
Oh,
in the day
really?
when you said 96 degrees instead of 30 whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started, quite a lot of times I heard people's mums or people's bridesmaids saying, "Oh no, a wedding dress is supposed to be uncomfortable." I was like, "No,
They're really not.
what?"
I think that's the joy of yours. You can see when you look on your website, there's models moving and things, and in that video, there's the model, and you can see that it's just so comfortable looking.
Yeah.
You know that you're not feeling sort of tight inside this thing that you can't breathe in, and it's
Absolutely.
You can
That's
just
kind of the aim of the
be
game, as far as I'm
yourself.
concerned. Yeah, and you can have a dress that's sort of cut that's going to flatter your figure and work with it rather than against it. I mean, it's not what everyone wants. If people want to wear a corset, then fine. I wore a corset on my wedding day actually, but
So did I with the hoops below.
Yeah, the hoops. Yeah,
majorly uncomfortable top and bottom.
Yeah.
It's the go to the loo moment, and you have to take your bridesmaid.
I don't think I did all day.
I have heard some horror stories about that.
Oh yeah.
I can imagine in your dresses you can go to the loo all by yourself.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, absolutely, you can do whatever you want. And people have different weddings now, don't they? They're not as formal, and people have different venues, and they're outside, and they want to be dancing all night and stuff. And
I
it's
think
nice
they
to be able
look
to.
really glamorous. I was looking at them thinking, oh, I'd love to have this. Maybe not in the whites and creams, but it's just a beautiful frock to wear.
Oh, me too. Can we go somewhere where we can have some frocks?
Just come and have a try-on session. Just come and visit.
My parents are in the middle of York, so I'm going to come and see you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pop in. You can try on as many as you want.
Right. I'm there next week.
So is it just bridal that you do? If someone came and said, would you make me a dress? Would you do that?
I would, but generally making in Britain makes it prohibitively expensive for anything other than a wedding dress. Which is actually going back to one of your questions. One of the reasons why it had to be bridal was that I wanted to use a certain standard of fabric, and I wanted to make them to a certain standard of make. And no one has the budget to buy anything that's made in Britain to that standard for a normal dress, a normal outfit. So it kind of had to be bridal, really. It's really not even really, it's not even really feasible for us to make bridesmaid dresses, because to use the fabric that I would like to use, and like I say, to make them to the standard that I'd like to make them, they'd just be too expensive. People are just the prices that we're used to is just because everything's made overseas now, so you can't compete really.
That's such a shame, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah, it didn't used to be like that, but
because I know, totally different material, but Welsh slate. So we've got, where I live, about an hour away, you can have the most glorious black Welsh proper slate, which I have cut for copings, for tops of walls and seats and things. Ridiculous the cost, and it's because of the cost of pulling it out the ground, the labour. But you can go then to, and this is awful, so I don't really spec it anymore, you go to Brazil or China and get Chinese slate for a third of the price, and yet mine is an hour away. It just doesn't, I can't get my head around it at all. It's such a shame. But it is what it is,
Yeah, and it's not a terrible thing to get things from overseas, is it? As long as it's ethical and everything. But everybody's just got used to the price of everything.
House or something, somebody's roof.
But people always ask if I make my own clothes and stuff, and I wish I could say yes, but first of all, I don't have time. But you can't make things cheaper than you can buy them in the shops. It's impossible to buy the fabric and then. Even if you're not paying yourself a wage to do it, the fabric is generally as much as it would be to buy the finished garment in the shop, which is why people don't make their own clothes anymore.
Although I guess you can make something really different for yourself when you're making it yourself.
Absolutely. And I do wish I did it. Sophie, who freelances for me, helps us make the dresses. She makes all her own clothes. She makes dungarees and all sorts, and they're amazing. But you really have to have the time to dedicate to it.
Yeah, you really haven't had time to make maternity clothes.
Certainly not.
She now just puts great big wedding dresses on.
Yeah.
So you went from, people coming in and just saying, right, I want a dress that looks like this, completely bespoke, to where you are now. How did that change?
How did it change the business? Or
how did you get from where the early days to where you are now?
So there were certain designs in mind that I thought that I would have loved to make, and I thought that if I had them, the samples ready for people to try on, I was pretty certain they would sell. So the first collection was, it was quite 1930s, 1940s inspired. I love bias cut stuff. I don't know what bias cut stuff is, but it's a certain way of cutting the fabric, and it's really fluid, and it fits you really well. It's quite difficult to do, but really satisfying. And it's like 1930s. That's what people would think of in the 1930s. Your slinky satin dresses and stuff. Which obviously, from a vintage point of view, they're harder to source than the later vintage, obviously, because they're older. So that was kind of what I was aiming for to begin with, and it's just something I really love. So I did a first collection of those about 6 years ago or something like that. And just sort of took a punt, like I say, it took a few grand and a lot of time to develop it, and just hoped that people would like it, and they did. So
where do you take that collection?
Yeah, did you
show it to?
Well, I just
yeah.
no, I'm afraid not. I obviously did a photo shoot. In fact, you did
the Saltmarsh.
No, but did you do the flowers that first one? I think you did. It was a James Melia shoot. And it was on the moors.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, you did do the flowers. Yeah, a long time ago.
Was that 6 years ago? My goodness.
I think so. Yeah.
Gosh.
What year were we in?
2021.
5. Might be 5. Yeah, and so it was just sort of word of mouth by that point. I'd had so many brides through the bespoke service that people were recommending to family and friends and stuff, and it just sort of grew very slowly. Like I say, it's all been very, very slow, very slow growth.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of buzz around vintage style weddings, and because it was still vintage inspired designs, it was still in the same sort of scene as the vintage stuff. And yeah, just sort of kept hacking away and trying to do more designs since then, really.
So now you've got a whole shop.
Yes. Yeah, it still feels like a bit of a dream, really.
And do you have shop now?
Sorry.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm in the shop. I'm huddled into a corner because the light's not very good at this time of day. So I'm just in a corner of the dress room where there was a bit of natural light.
So for anybody that's not watching on YouTube but listening to this, there's just rows and curtains of beautiful silk drapes behind you. It's just fabulous.
Sumptuous.
Yeah.
So do you have stockists now as well?
Yeah. So I think, what have I got? 6 stockists, I think. Mostly in Britain. I've got one in Northern Ireland, and just hopefully securing my first American one this week, which is nice. So
do you look for specific types of businesses to put your dresses into?
Yeah, mostly people have actually approached me, which is nice because you know that they're into what you're doing. And obviously there's you get a vibe from people's websites and the other designers that they sell as to what their sort of style is. And most of the stockists that we've got are really buzzing about the whole sustainable angle as well, which is obviously what you want. I want people to be selling that when they're selling the dresses. So it's great. You just get to work with really like-minded people, and a lot of them, the stockists have sort of been either from sort of similar backgrounds to me, or they've been going a similar sort of time to me. So everyone's kind of on a level. It's really, really supportive and really lovely. It's really nice.
And how do you get the inspiration for the actual designs? Because I know the latest one is kind of like based on chemistry, isn't it? Which is a really obscure thing. Yeah.
I'm a total geek, really. I mean, for me, not all. There's a lot of beautiful collections out there that aren't inspired by anything from other designers. But for me, I find like I need something to tie it all together. Otherwise, I'm just sort of free falling with all these different ideas, and maybe it wouldn't make much of an outward difference to other people, but for me it needs to look cohesive, and there needs to be some sort of theme that runs through, just to collect my ideas really. So for the chemistry collection, I was kind of looking into it, and I was looking into the love hormones and what, and like that, the actual chemistry and biology behind falling in love, and what happens and things. And actually the love hormones like oxytocin and things like that, the chemical structure is really interesting. These beautiful hexagonal structures, like chemical formulas, and you've got your oxygen and everything joined together. So I really like the idea of sort of running with that. So a lot of the dresses have got sort of seams and things that are inspired by hexagonal shapes, and thinking about the bonding of molecules together. So there's a lot of overlapping circles, and I found really nice like organic laces that had the overlapping circles that seemed like, to me it all makes sense, but I mean, you would never notice. You would never notice otherwise, probably.
No, but it makes it all come together, doesn't it? And there's a lot of things we do. It's like some of the things people just wouldn't notice, but it makes it right for us, and the whole thing just sort of like comes together. And
definitely, and it's just like a subtle sort of something to hang it on, isn't it? Like something that's gonna an overarching theme that's gonna help. Definitely,
and it's still relevant. It's still about love and that sort of thing, but it's chemistry and the geeky side comes out.
Yeah, I love that. and I really like, I'm really into chemistry and really into history and all that kind of stuff. And I like going back to the basics of things. Like I think I've written somewhere on the website about, I love the idea of doing these sort of quite modern wedding dresses now, but like, and with really sort of innovative fabrics and things, and technologically innovative fabrics, but using these techniques that are ancient, that have been used for thousands of years and stuff. Like there's some smocking on one of the dresses. I don't know if you know what smocking is. And it makes little hexagons. So I've the design of the smocking that I've used is little hexagons. But so that's like the chemistry geeky side. But smocking has been done for thousands of years all around the world, and apparently it's been evidence of it has been found in every culture around the globe. Yeah, because it's just, they used to use it instead of, before they had elastic, because it can make like an elastic cuff or something. I love that. That's great, isn't it?
You sort of think of it as being something to do with shepherds and things, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't know why. That's immediately what came. And I remember having little smock dresses when I was really small.
Yeah, me
just
too.
Really lovely.
Yeah.
But that doesn't look easy to do.
It's not actually complicated. It's just a bit fiddly and time consuming, But once again, people used to do it, didn't they? My mum's not like a massive maker, but she smocked dresses for us when we were little. But nowadays people are a bit frightened of it, like either that's your thing or it isn't. But everyone used to dress make, didn't they? So.
And presumably back in the day, obviously it would have been all done by hand. I mean, they haven't got their singer sewing machines in the caves, have they?
Well, yeah, this is it. Well, smocking, actually, the proper smocking is done by hand, and that's what we've done on the dresses in the collection. Actually,
oh, they're hand smocked.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See, we just assumed it was a machine thing.
Yeah, no, well, you can get machines that do it. There's different types of smocking, because you can use elastic thread and it sort of shears it up and it looks a little bit like mock smocking kind of thing. Or you can do the traditional way where you hand pleat it and hand stitch it, which is what I did, which is really satisfying. It's a really nice job. Just time consuming, so you never see it in obviously high street shops or anything because it's prohibitively expensive.
That's so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, incredible. Really beautiful. Right, well, I don't know if you've listened to any of our episodes, but we do ask a fun five, as we don't call it. Are you ready for your 5 questions? Oh my goodness, I've written them down somewhere. Town or country?
It's difficult because I would say country, but I live in the town now. Now I'm right in the centre of York. Not that it really counts because York's so tiny. It's not like living in a city, really. But can I say both?
Yeah, I reckon you can.
Oh, Luce, you're being generous today.
I know. I feel all romantic about the hand smocking and whatever you want.
You can have whatever you want, Hayley.
Yeah. Amazing.
What song did you last listen to? I know this will be a goodie. And I don't mean just happen to listen to on the radio. What would you deliberately listen to?
Oh, what is the song I last listened to? It wasn't on the radio.
I mean, it could be on the radio, but that you've not like the Venga Boys or something. You just happened to hear in the car.
The last thing I remember putting on Spotify on purpose was Radiohead. I'm a huge Radiohead fan.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, massive. They're amazing, and they have a bit of a difficult reputation, I think, but people need to give them a go.
No, I like some Radiohead.
This is it, yeah. I appreciate some of
I absolutely loved. I was really into them for OK Computer.
Oh, one of my favourites. Yeah. Literally every year, I was talking to Rebecca who worked with me about this last Saturday, and every year or two I have another OK Computer phase where I just listen to it non-stop over and over again.
I just wasn't sure if it was the time that I was listening to it, but it's the one that I would say is definitely my favourite. It's just
it's amazing. I mean, it's worth you checking out the new stuff, actually, the newer stuff.
Oh, really?
Some people who listen to Radiohead back then kind of don't only listen to the older albums, but check out In Rainbows. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make a note.
Thank you. Right, this is going to be quite interesting as well, because everything is unexpected about you, but tell us something unexpected about you.
Unexpected about me. I don't know.
It really puts people on the spot, really doesn't
it? I suppose, I don't know, knowing me and knowing what I'm into, and I'm quite sort of modern in my points of view and things like that. I'm really, really into history and old novels and stuff. So I like really modern music and everything. Well, as well as vintage music. And I'm really sort of forward thinking with fashion and things like that, I suppose. But yeah, I love history. I'm really into Bronze Age burials.
Oh, are you?
Of course you are.
That is unexpected.
Explain why.
Because there's a thing about Bronze Age burials in Yorkshire specifically. I don't know if you know this, Fiona. And they've found Bronze Age chariot burials in Yorkshire, right?
Oh my God.
And the only other place that these are found are in France. Nowhere else in England, but in Britain, like not even that far away from where I grew up in Yorkshire, they've found female chariot burials, Bronze Age. So this is a female warrior who's been buried with her chariot in the ground, with jewellery that's got stones in that's been traded from the other side of the world and stuff. So we're talking 3,000 years ago or something.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe this is a tangent I'm going down, but I'm doing it.
That's why we ask it. It takes you down unusual tangents.
And I just think that's amazing. If they told us that at school, people would have loved history, but everyone hated history.
I know.
Yeah, boring.
They tell you all the rubbish stuff.
It's like,
well, there seems to be a huge focus on modern wars, and you think, give me the good stuff where women are involved, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, how amazing is that? That it was first of all a woman in Yorkshire, having wars on chariots and things like that. I just think that's amazing, and it's not really talked about, and it's not even that long ago. The Bronze Age, really, it's not that long.
You imagine it in Rome and stuff, don't you? You don't imagine it in Yorkshire.
yeah. Oh, amazing. I love that. Is that unexpected enough?
Yes, that was really good.
Is there a particular book about that then? That you've read?
It's just documentaries that I've seen, actually. There's been a couple of really good ones on the BBC, obviously. But yeah, and then I actually had a bride who was an architecture student, and they recently, a year or two ago, found another Bronze Age chariot burial. This wasn't a woman, I don't think, but it was really unusual because they dig such a deep pit. Sorry for the tangent, it's so bizarre.
No, it's brilliant.
They dug such a deep pit that actually buried alive the two horses with this guy in his chariot burial. So there's two fully grown horses stood up in the soil, and the chariot and this warrior.
Oh, wow.
And this was up here somewhere as well, in Yorkshire somewhere. And the bride that I had in her fitting, it was her fiance that had found this burial. You've no idea how excited I was.
Oh my God.
That is quite a story. Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Those poor horses.
I know. I was just hoping that they were dead when they went in.
I'm trying to erase that from my mind now. It's
Yeah.
going to be quite sad.
Not so great for the horses, but you know, architecturally, I mean, archaeologically, great.
Fascinating.
There's quite a lot of activity around here. I think there was a lot of Oliver Cromwell stuff that you very often see people, like even in the field, just outside the house with metal detectors and stuff. There was a lot of activity around here. I know that's a different era, but it's quite interesting, Yorkshire.
It is.
Right, what was the next one? What did you have for supper last night?
Last night. Homemade veggie chili.
Nice.
Well done on remembering. It's only about 50-50, that one. And finally, what's the most inspiring place you've ever been to?
India, without a doubt. Yeah.
Because you I'd forgotten about that. You're selling are you selling, or what do you call it? You've got a dress that you're selling for people just bidding £10 for an Indian fund, aren't you, for the COVID?
Yeah. If anyone's listening, you can still in with a chance to win a free wedding dress. With
I can't remember when this is going out, but hopefully when does it close?
Well, it's closing. What day is it? Closing tomorrow dinner time, actually. So it probably knows how. But yeah, I'm giving away a wedding dress. It's really upsetting to see what's going on over there, and some of the fabrics we use are made in India, so it just feels like the right thing to do, really. And you know, not that we use any of the labour out there apart from the fabrics, but you know, so much of their workforce obviously is in the fashion industry, in the garment making industry, and it's just horrendous. You know, they suffered so much with COVID last year from a financial point of view, because all these massive companies like H&M and stuff were just cancelling orders, and you know, there's all these people that were just instantly had no money, no income at all, and it's hard for people to imagine over here. I think you don't have any safety net.
No,
there's
all.
No benefits, no government to catch you.
You know, it's easy for people to just think that it's somehow covered by insurance or something, and it's not. And then, you know, and with this whole second wave, they're having lockdowns and stuff, but then people can't work, so they haven't got any food. So people are travelling back to the home villages and out in the sticks and inadvertently taking COVID with them. They haven't got any choice, you know, otherwise they wouldn't be able to survive in the cities. So it's just horrendous. And having been there and seen, you know, lived in the society and stuff, we travelled around there for sort of 3 or 4 months when I was just married, and seeing how sort of fragile people's, not everyone's, obviously there's amazing parts of India that are really wealthy and stuff, but the fragile people's grip is on day-to-day life. It's really frightening. We think it's been bad over here, but it's...
I know. I'm not sure if it was you that actually posted it, but somebody said it was a whole thing. And I think it was actually last year where they posted saying social distancing is a privilege. You know, it means you've got room to actually be able to do it. They can't do that in India. Washing your hands is a privilege because you can't do that in India. They haven't got fresh water, you know, and literally everything that we were moaning about, you know, we're having to social distance, we're having to do this, like they physically can't do it. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's just different worlds.
And you think in the early days that food parcels were set up by the government to take to people to their door. Here, that's just not something that happens in India.
I know, it's incredible. We're so lucky.
I know.
But you know,
do take it for granted.
It's feels like, you know, like I say, it feels like the right thing to do, even though it's not like my business or anything is benefiting from, you know, the terrible labour in India, because it's not. But it just felt like, because it was slightly involved, and because
it's dear to your heart, isn't it? Because
absolutely,
there was one of the silks that you said came from a guy in India, and he transformed his whole sort of growing area. That was a really interesting story.
Yeah, the peace silk. Yeah, so this guy Prakash, I met him at a fabrics fair in London, and I think he sort of lives half in Germany and half in India. And I think he's a member of the Green Party in Germany. I think he's actually a little bit in politics, but anyway, he bought this silk farm, which had been commercially producing silk with chemicals, you know, for years, and it had just sort of decimated the land, and the land around it couldn't be used for agriculture or anything. And I think he said it'd taken it over something like 3 years ago, and it had recovered completely from producing organic piece silk, even so that the surrounding villages could grow crops next to the silk again because they'd landed disrecovered. Like, how it's so amazing. There's a lot more in the fashion world nowadays that are having this regenerative agriculture angle, which is really, really exciting. You know, if people are interested in it and people will buy it, then more of it will happen. So.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is ignorance as well, isn't it? I mean, I didn't know that silk was, you know, sort of like bad for, you know, just...
I know. Sometimes I almost feel like you hesitate to tell people because sometimes you're breaking people's hearts. People that love natural fibres and people that really love silk and stuff, you don't want to tell them that silkworms have been killed during the production of it.
I remember when I first heard that, it was probably only about a couple of years ago, because, you know, we've all loved our silk ribbons, and you suddenly think, well, I'm not sure I love these silk ribbons.
Yeah, I know. It's just, but why would you know? You know, there's no reason for anyone to know this.
As you say, nobody's going to tell you because it's not in their interest to tell you, is it? If they're trying to sell it to you.
But you know, there's definitely a lot more available now. It's so great. You know, like I say, even just in the last year or two, like everybody's more conscious of it, aren't they? So it's really exciting. And we've raised like 700 quid for India for this competition. So I'm really,
amazing.
Really, really pleased. Yeah.
Oh. Fabulous. So what are you doing for the rest of the day?
Trying to get a little bit of work done and then going to pick up the toddler off the grandparents.
Oh yes. You're having to make arrangements, weren't you? We were trying to fix a date and I'd suggested a date and Hayley was like, yeah, I'm actually due to give birth that day. Can we maybe make it another day?
Before.
Definitely creeping up on me. Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll let you go because I know you've got a really busy life, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been lovely to meet you properly, and lovely to actually have a chance to have a chat, Fiona, because it's always frantic whenever I'm doing a shoot or whatever. So
I know, it's always like, hi, bye.
Yeah.
Well, so good luck at all.
Yeah. The three of us will come and try on dresses very soon.
Please do. Honestly, if you ever find yourselves in York way on, please pop in for a cuppa and give me a call.
We will.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to the Restless Creatives podcast. To ensure you don't miss our next episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Restless Creatives podcast. If you'd prefer to listen rather than watch us, you can catch us on one of your favoured podcast providers. For more sneak peeks and behind the scenes fun, visit our Instagram at the.restlesscreatives or visit our website, therestlesscreatives.co.uk.